Hi, and welcome to the Long Range Shooting and Custom Rifle Building podcast presented by Wolf Precision Incorporated, where we learn about and share long range shooting and custom rifle building. I am your host, Jamie Dodson, and welcome to the show. Hi, and welcome to episode 246 of Wolf Precision's Long Range Shooting and Custom Rifle Building podcast. I'm your host, Jamie Dodson, and welcome back to the show. In this episode, we're going to dive into some really exciting news for a new class next year, the movers. So we're going to talk a little bit about the movers class. We have had so many customers requesting it. And besides, I really like to get down and visit Eric down there and have some good barbecue. So we'll have some updates if you stick around to the end of the class on some of the schools and events that are going to be happening for 2026. It'll be exciting to some of the classes we're going to offer. And we're going to dive into and continue on our gunsmithing series, in which we're going to talk a little bit about purchasing a lathe to chamber barrels, as well as some of the pitfalls and things that you're going to have to be careful of if you're planning on doing this, or if you're having somebody do the work for you. So we're going to continue on our gunsmithing series, and this one we're going to talk about the lathe. So without further ado, here we go. Before we get started, I would like to say a quick thank you to TriggerTech. TriggerTech is the maker of fine rifle triggers. We recommend them for all of our rifle build kits here. They are, in my mind, one of the safest triggers, easiest to install, and easiest to adjust on the market. So if you want to upgrade your rifle and you'd like to do it with a great trigger, you can stop over to triggertech.com. That's triggertech.com today. We'd also like to thank MDT. MDT is the maker of fine rifle chassis. They make a lot of different great makes and models with new stuff coming out all the time. You can stop over and look at their fine selection at mdttac.com. That's mdttac.com to upgrade your rifle today. So in this episode, we're going to continue on our series and talk a little bit about the lathe. And this could be about threefold. So think of this as whether you're thinking of getting into building custom rifles or you would like to learn traditional chambering. Think about this if you already have one and you're doing it now. And then from a consumer's point of view, think about this when you're making your selection as to who is going to chamber your rifle. This stuff is really important. When we start getting down the rabbit hole of making super high quality or super accurate rifles, a lot of people think the magic is in the hands of the person that's doing the chambering and the machining. In almost like an effect that they're going to make it shoot better, that you're going to send them all these components, and with the seasoning that they're going to put all over it and the magic that they put into it with their hands, that they're going to take those half-minute components and they're going to make it a quarter-minute rifle. Well, to start this whole conversation off, that really is not how it works. And I think for the consumer side, a lot of this needs to be really on the forefront and, not even afraid to ask the questions when you're working on this. So right out of the gate, that misconception is part of the problem, that if you think about the quality of the work that someone's going to do to your barrel and getting it chambered and set up to put on your action and to actually make a great shooting rifle, his magic is the fact that he can get it through to the finished part, or the finished rifle in this case, without negatively affecting it by the processes that he has to do to it to make it into a working rifle. There is nothing he can do that will make those components shoot better from their raw form to a completed rifle, other than what they were capable of when they were made. This is why when we talk about custom rifles, we're very specific on even who we will allow components to build with. Because we are absolutely, and you are too, vulnerable to the quality of the components that you're selecting. Now, when we're talking about vulnerable, you'll read on forums and websites that, if you do any search for any barrel maker, you're going to hear all these people chime in, and someone will post up a 3-shot group and, a couple Google researches, and there you go. You found your new barrel. Let's just say brand X barrels. Well, what we've learned, and this is talking about barrels before we even get into the gunsmith. What we have learned is that a lot of times there's so many new barrel makers coming on the market that when they first start out, they are doing a superb job. Like, they're really trying to make the best rifles that they can, and the fact that they're going to supply you the barrel. As time goes on, the quality starts to fade. Now production or back orders become the issue. They're trying to speed things along because you're either trying to make more money, they're trying to bring the cost down, or they have massive back orders. And in 2 decades of doing this, I have learned that these new people to come out all the time, it's not their ability to make a great barrel now, it's their ability when we start partnering with them to hold that quality 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now. And we have learned that most don't. I mean, that's just sad. Now, there is a difference between cut rifled and button rifle barrels, and we choose as our A game cut rifle barrels for a reason. And you can go back to our last 2 podcasts ago, I believe episode 244, and listen to John Krieger's interview that we did. We do that for a reason, and we select the barrel makers we use, which is Krieger for our main barrels, for a reason. And that's because we can take, like John had said, we can take 500 barrels from Krieger. And the majority of them, if you think of like we list out the barrels from shooting acceptable to great to acceptable, like think of that bell curve of, just, that acceptable to really good. And then of course you'll get a couple outliers that might be just like, that's the gold, right? It's the 1 in a million barrel that just absolutely is able to put bullet inside a bullet. But why we choose Krieger and why we're really picky even on the barrel makers that we even allow customers to send is because we want to have a history of barrels going into that bell curve that are great accuracy. So not acceptable. The bulk of them at the top of the bell curve are setting dead center between, acceptable and world class. Like the best. Think of that 1 in a million barrel that you get 5 out of 5,000 that just for some reason is just magic, right? They might not all be there, but they all are exceptional, or at least the majority. And rarely do we get one that's just borderline passing muster. Like it's just, oh, this one's pretty good, or it's really good. And in most people's cases, they've never had a really accurate barrel. So even one that would fall on the left side of the bell curve, think of acceptable, on our behalf acceptable, is still a world-class barrel, and it's still world-class accuracy. When you start talking about the gunsmith, though, and whether you're going to become someone who wants to do this chambering by hand, or you're a customer getting ready to send this world-class barrel off, those components make a difference. And the fact that next person that you're handing that barrel off to can do one of 2 things. They can allow the barrel to sing to its fullest potential, or they can degrade the accuracy of the barrel through their processes or the equipment that they're using, even though they're dialing things in perfectly straight and true. So let me explain. For those that have not machined before, those that have never ran a manual lathe, if you can picture, you got a headstock that holds your barrel. You've got a tailstock that slides back and forth that has, a center in it that we would put our reamer in traditional chambering. And then in the middle, you've got your slide that's your cross slide, and you're going to use that to hold your tools, and you're going to do your cutting on your barrel from there. Then you're going to get it out of the way, as close to the headstock as you can. Then you're going to bring your tailstock up with your reamer. But you have this whole unit in the middle that moves back and forth that cuts the barrel, drills it, all this work that it does, So with that, here is the problem that you are going to run into. And these are questions that you should ask your gunsmith, because I would say I would probably be correct. Most gunsmiths are purchasing used lathes. I think that's a fair assumption. There isn't a lot of good toolroom lathes out there anymore. There's nobody really making like there's just not 30 of them to choose from made here in the United States. There are some out there, but you have to dig long and hard, and you have to really, really write that check on that checkbook to get it. But a really brand new high quality toolroom lathe could probably cost you anywhere from $30,000 to $40,000, if not a little more. So, right out of the gate, most gunsmiths that are starting out, they are on a budget. So, most gunsmiths start this out as a hobby. So, they're just not going to go out and spend, $40,000, $50,000 on a brand new lathe plus all of the tooling. But I'm going to come back to that because that doesn't even get you out of the woods yet. So, most gunsmiths, when they get this, aren't machinists per se. So, what they don't know and what most consumers don't know is that there is the ways that run back and forth like railroad tracks from your headstock to your tailstock, which holds your reamer, and then your slide in the middle that runs your toolings back and forth and allows you to make all of your cuts, right? Hold your tools there. So you've got your cross slide on there, and then of course you've got your carriage that works back and forth like on a wheel that goes back and forth on these railroad tracks. Going from as far back as the tailstock to up to the workpiece, and that holds your tools and cutting tools and holders and everything else. Most of these lathes that they're buying, they wear out in the middle. So as that slide or as the carriage is being moved back and forth, left and right and left and right and left and right over time, it starts to wear your ways down and it creates almost like a sag in the middle. Now it's measurable. It may not be visible, but it's measurable. What that also means is that when you put your carriage the whole way forward and you bring your tailstock up, that your tailstock, as it's coming more towards in to put the reamer into the barrel, it's drooping down in the middle. So it's really important that if you're going to cut super high quality chambers, regardless of how you dial the barrel in, regardless if it's a free floating reamer or not, right? Because they make free floating reamers that float on a point on a tailstock, and then it sort of self aligns a little bit with the barrel, which can help a little bit with that, but it does not solve the problem per se. That machine should be torn down, rebuilt, and a professional should come in and not only check this alignment, but also they would actually grind down your ways to they're perfectly straight again. And this is after they set the lathe up, so that way there's no twist in it as well. So even brand new machines that get set on the floor, especially with your smaller lathes, as they set all four corners of the unit that's carrying the lathe, or think of the bench that it's setting on, it's usually part of the lathe itself it's bolted to, that has to be leveled, and then the ways themselves have adjustments to take twist out, or else what's happening as you slide forward, the ways are twisting, and it's twisting the center of the tailstock left and right. So if you can picture as it's sliding forward, it's shifting your point of contact left and right ever so slightly because of the twist. And so now you got droop, and now you've got twist. The other thing is that the tailstock itself that holds the reamer, it wears out and wears over time, and sometimes sags in the front. That's not uncommon at all. When a lathe is made new, it's actually artificially above center about a thou and a half. I mean, they actually do this on purpose, so that way as the ways wear in and the tailstock wears in, it comes back to center, then goes below and out of tolerance, right? So if they start in the middle, it'll go out of tolerance faster, so they try to give you something there to work with. That said, though, it has to be aligned once the ways are ground. And then the other thing that has to do is it actually has to be aligned left and right. And I know this sounds like a lot to take, but there is a way to align your tailstock left and right as well. So it's in alignment not only up and down, tilted fore and aft, and then twisted, and then left and right. All of this has to be done by a professional with professional tools, with really good levels, machinist levels, that they can actually get all of this out of the lathe, because all of it will affect the quality of the work that they're going to do into the barrel and how it supports and holds the reamer going straight into the barrel, not thinking about curvature of the bore or anything else that we talk about that's a potential issue with consistently making high quality rifles. But that being said, when you're hiring a gunsmith, you should ask for some certification that they've had their machine trued, that all the ways are true, that everything's been ground. I mean, you have to do it with tools. We have to send tools back to have them calibrated and make sure they're correct. Why would you expect anything less from somebody that you're handing off a $500 part and paying them, $4, $5, $6, $7, $800 to do all this machining work on a machine that wouldn't pass if somebody inspected it? And then the other part of this is it falls right into that category of a new machine. So even if you buy a new machine, you have to have somebody come in that either knows that machine and is able to set it up properly on the floor, so there's no twist in the ways, and they actually have to really they have to set alignment up, even though everything might be straight and true from the factory when it was made, and shipping and getting it on the pads in your shop and getting everything set up to work in your shop. Sometimes all of these things need to be moved around so that the carriage works perfectly back and forth and is aligned, but more importantly, that the tailstock is dead center perfect to center and supporting that reamer. When you talk about used lathes, most guys don't do this. And when you talk about used lathes, most guys are buying really worn out lathes. There are a few lathes on the market today that haven't passed through like 5 hands, especially when you start talking about gunsmithing lathes that guys would be looking for. They're not really used in job shops anymore. So the stuff that's out there could be 10, 15, 20, 30 years old. Could still be good, don't get me wrong, and could be really good or even great. But this work needs to be done. And if you didn't do it, then you're really shortchanging the customer, because it will absolutely affect the quality of the workmanship. And going back to talking about this as far as a gunsmith goes, decrease the quality of the accuracy of the rifle. It might be a little, it might be a lot, but keep in mind, he can't make it shoot any better transitioning that barrel from just a rifle barrel blank to a chambered barrel that's going on your rifle. He can only make it shoot as good, in other words, no negative effect whatsoever, or he can degrade it. That's the two options. If he doesn't do all this work to the lathe, he is either not knowing, which can be bad. He just doesn't know how bad this can be. It's never been checked. He's never had somebody come in and actually put all kinds of stuff on there to measure it and see how bad it is. And sometimes they don't want to know, right? Because then that means they have to do all of this work. So it's better to not know than to know in some cases. And then other people are just neglectful about it. It doesn't matter. It's good enough. This is the way we've always done it. This lathe has been chambering barrels for 50 years. Why would we have somebody come in and check it now, right? Your hard-earned money. But if I was selecting a gunsmith today, and especially if they were hand chambering, these are questions that I would be asking right out of the gate. So if you are a new gunsmith, I would certainly make sure that you select a high quality, if you can, a really high quality known entity as a manual lathe. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. It's going to hurt and sting a little bit, but even doing so when it gets dropped at your shop or your house, make sure you hire a professional to come in and set it up properly. Make sure you hire somebody that is known to do this, whether it's a rigger or whether it's like we have machine rebuilders out of Derry, Pennsylvania. When I had my manual lathe doing a lot of chambering 20 years ago, they come in and do all of this work and how important it is. And if you don't, you really are leaving yourself and your customers vulnerable to the things you don't know or just your straight out negligence. When I started building rifles quite a long time ago, I was on the hunt for a lathe. I was on the hunt, and it took me months. And I knew what I wanted. I wanted a belt-driven lathe. I didn't want a gear-driven lathe. There's several reasons for that. Those we can talk about in another episode if somebody would like to hear that. I really wanted the South Bend Heavy 10, and I wanted a real tool room lathe. And more than 20 years ago, I found one in California legitimately at a gentleman's shop that bought it new and had the receipts, and still lived at the address that they were shipped to because South Bend was still in operation at that point. Had 100 hours on it. He paid more for that lathe in 1978 than what a house cost to some people. So with no tooling, no nothing, the lathe, I believe the original receipts was like $18,000. Way more than a car. 2 or 3 times the cost of a car, right? Had 100 hours on it. flame hardened, beautiful piece of equipment. So I purchased it, and I paid more for that then than what most people will probably pay for a used beat up lathe now. I brought that here, and then once it was all set up, we hired a company out of Derry, Pennsylvania called Machine Rebuilders. And what was really cool is when I got them on the phone and said, "Here's what I've got. Here's what I'd like you to do," and I think they were shocked that I was willing to spend all this extra money to, they go and do multi-million-dollar machines. These guys travel the country, aligning these things in grinding ways and making machines perfect. From aerospace to all of that, and the president himself came to my small shop and did my lathe for me. It was amazing. So he got on the phone. He was like, "What do you have?" And I was like, "Hey, I got a 1978 flame hardened South Bend Heavy 10 that's got 100 hours on it." And when he come over, I mean, he was just, I think he would have bought the lathe from me if he could have, because he was like, "Do you realize what you have here?" And I was like, "Yeah, I sort of do." I said, "I'm so lucky." He said, "This lathe will last you your lifetime and your daughter's lifetime." And when we spec'd it all out, it still had, Mara said about the tailstock being a touch high. They usually leave about a thou high or thou and a half high. And that way, as your waves wear down, it'll drop below center and gives you some mercy. It was still at factory spec when it left. So it had no wear whatsoever. But I paid for him to be there the whole time to do all of this to this machine. We had to align because of shipping and setting, and the machine's been, we had to align the headstock, we had to align the tailstock, we had to take, twist out of the ways. There was just a ton of work to get this thing set up. Not that the machine, if you looked at it from it's 100 hours, this thing should run perfect. And it was mechanically. It was, all the parts and pieces were there and were really great shape. But all of that had to be realigned and readjusted and reset. I mean, the whole thing was completely torn down and put back together again. I chambered barrels on there and a technique called spiders. And I can knock on wood. And all the years I've used that machine, I never had a rifle come back. I never had a rifle call me and say, "Hey," or a customer call me and say, "This gun's not shooting quite." It was always the opposite. Customers would call like, "Oh my gosh, this thing's a hammer," right? And part of that was, the skilled craftsman, which is part of the equation, but the quality of tools that you're using to do your work and investing the money. Although I cried, I will tell you, all of this is super expensive, but investing the money to make sure that once you get it there, that it's actually set up perfectly straight and true. If not, you're kidding yourself if you think that you can just align it, take the twist out with, a cheap old level, and you should be able to chamber world-class barrels. The odds of you keeping them in that bell curve, or the odds of you negatively affecting the barrel, go up significantly. And I'm not saying you're going to build lousy barrels or that you're going to build lousy rifles, but you're leaving yourself vulnerable to not do the best work you could do, or not hand the rifle to the customer with as little negative effect from your machines or from your skills. So quality driver, quality machine. And again, same thing with using, any new machines. It's amazing. Even the CNCs we have here today. Now, the time that they take, the decimal points that they go out to, how heavy and big these things are, there are controls over them. But even, you figure a $330,000 machine still has a guy going over it for 5 days on the shop floor, aligning everything properly and making sure that nothing shifted, making sure, all the factory settings are correct. There's a lot that they have to do to get that machine up and running. And why should a manual lathe be any different? And they're just as vulnerable, these big machines, as the small machines, of having, setting on a floor that's not perfectly level. All of these things have to be taken care of. So when you're getting into gunsmithing, as far as a gunsmith, don't kid yourself. Make sure you find in every lathe that you buy used, they're going to tell you that it's a tool room lathe and it was only ever used in a pickle factory. I mean, you'll just read this stuff, and there's a lot of scammers out there that put these lathes together and then sell them as, oh my gosh, look how beautiful this thing has never been run. Make sure you have somebody that can look over your shoulder and look at these things with you if you're purchasing one, especially used, and don't be afraid to get a rebuilder in your area or find somebody that's willing to help you and work with you once you get it there. And then if you are buying new, make sure that you make it part of the deal that they send one of their representatives to help you really get this thing set up properly and get all the twists out, get it level, make sure headstock, tailstock, everything's perfectly aligned. What we did, 20 years forward, of course, we have the Gen 4 Ace, which is coming out soon. We're super excited. We got some exciting news coming out in the next couple weeks. The machine's running great. We make the chamber separate and we only do the throat in the barrel. I mean, there's a lot to it, but we do that so we can get away from the curvature of the bore to allow us to build rifles in that bell curve, not just the same as we've always done. So we expect the same, if not better accuracy, but it allows us to do it in a volume way rather than, Jamie doing one at a time on a manual lathe. We can rinse and repeat the process of how we make a rifle and how I've made rifles for more than 2 decades, but without my hands being on every single one dialing it in. We found a way to bring it really to the masses and getting the reason the ACE exists, not to go into an ACE rant here at all, but the reason the ACE exists is to allow us to do that at volume and at scale and with the same goal of having all of these barrels go out, all of these rifles go out, with them being in that, hey, we're not negatively affecting them. We are getting them to the consumer with the most accuracy that that barrel can have. We're not negatively or pulling anything away from it. We're passing through that accuracy with minimal to no negative effect by equipment or by human hands or by processes, which is why the ACE exists, because the process of traditionally shaming a barrel is more than 130, 140 years. They've been doing it that way. And we think we found a better way to do it and keep them in that bell curve more consistently and more accurately and at volume. Really is what it's about, is being able to repeat it without having, single hands on it. Before we continue on, I do want to say a quick thank you. Speaking of barrels, of course, Krieger Barrels is a sponsor of the show. Really was a pleasure to have John for an interview. If you want to hear our interview, you can go back to episode 244. It was a really great interview. Got a chance to sit down with him at the Pennsylvania Gunsmithing School. Krieger is cut rifled. They'll explain why in the interview, which I think was awesome. But we've used Krieger for more than 2 decades. They are our go-to barrel for sure for all of the reasons that we talked about, even just here in this podcast. They do offer a program called Krieger Direct where you can log in and purchase from inventory. And they also have a sales page, which is overflow or stuff that customer canceled the order halfway through the barrel. So they'll finish making it and then they'll put it up for sale. So sometimes you can go through all those and you can get your barrel quickly, which is really nice. So if you want the best and you need it now, you can stop over to KriegerBarrels.com, KriegerBarrels.com today. Some exciting news. All right, let's get on to it. So we're going to continue on our gunsmithing series, and then we're going to talk a little bit about our prosumer gunsmithing schools that are going to be getting ready to launch. But every class we've had this year, we have had customers just hammering us about this movers class. So one of my favorite classes to teach is the movers, and we teach that in Swainsboro, Georgia at Cool Acre Sporting Camp with Eric. We've been teaching it down there for, 17 years now since Eric built the range, and we should go down every year, every other year, just depending on how hard it is for me to get away from work. But just in this last class alone, let alone every class we've had this year, we have had customers like, oh my gosh, when are you going to do that? Because we definitely want to come down, Well, we're going to do it. So we announced at the end of March 2026, we will be teaching a movers class. Registration is open. It is online. You can register now. It does require a deposit with the balance due 30 days prior to class. And you do not have to be suppressed for this class. This class is more of an open range. And so if you want to come suppressed, of course, I love it. But if you want to put a muzzle brake on or have your match rifle, anything like that. And plus at Eric's facility, Eric does a great job. He actually makes lunch every day for everybody. So we eat really well. It's a lot of camaraderie. Also, you can camp on the range. And so when I go to the range down there to teach this class, I actually stay at the facility. We usually go out and eat barbecue as often as we can. We'll camp right there. There's a shower house. There's a place to park your RV. It's just a great setup. So I just wanted to announce in this podcast that one of my favorite classes to teach is the movers class. Without a doubt, it is one of the most fun classes you can shoot. And we are going to run it. So we have had so many customers calling, asking in every class we've taught this year, when are you going to hold it? Well, we have enough people interested that why not? And I need a vacation. It's really nice to go down and teach this class just from my perspective, because get away from the shop for a couple of days, get a chance to hang out with everybody, camp there on the range, maybe bring a rifle down and shoot a little bit, not at the movers, but maybe after the class there. It's a beautiful facility to shoot. So if you want to register and you want to learn more about the movers class, you can go to Wolf Precision's website and you'll see registration is open. It is limited. So we do teach in pits. There's half on the line, half in the pits, and we rotate out. And we tell everybody this is the best time of the year to go to Georgia because it's not hot yet. It's a really good chance to stretch out your rifle early on, and then we'll have a train up for those that need it on Friday. I also recommend anyone signing up for the movers class that they actually attend either one of our in-person long-range shooting schools, or at least take the online class or some type of class. You should have a good rifle that you know well, that you have good dope for. The online class will help get you prepped up. And then if you show up for our class that we are doing the day before the movers, which is our optional class, you can sign up for that and come down and join us, and we'll get you all squared away. So Movers Class 2026 is happening end of March. Registrations are open. It's only going to be one class this year coming up. You can register at wolfprecision.net, and we're looking forward to having you all. Another class is getting ready to kick off, and this is by demand, is we are going to teach 3 in-person reloading classes. Now, that's 3 only, and in the reloading classes, they are limited to 6 students, so there'll be a very limited number of students that we'll allow to come through. We're going to run one class in January, one in February, and one in April. And that way, if you've taken our online reloading class or you've taken a reloading class, but you like to come in and spend 2 days, both of these classes I teach personally. And the remote class in Georgia is a little bit more expensive than just coming here and taking, a one-day class, just because I actually have to leave the shop for a week. There's a lot of time that I spend away. There's a lot of work that goes on down there behind the scenes to get everything ready for all the students coming in. So it's about 7 days worth of really hard work. But for me, it's worth it. We got the pits. We can we can train it right. We can teach it right. And students get so much from the class. It is just, we've had students leave and say it's the most fun they've ever had with their rifle. And that's how it should be. The reloading class, though, it's one of those things that I've reloaded hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of rounds, and it gives us a chance to spend time and go through the entire reloading process with you twice and share with you all the things that we found that make a difference. It's a hands-on class. A lot of people can learn online, and the online reloading class is a good testament as to people learning the processes and getting their heads wrapped around the art of reloading. But that said, though, there is something to be said that a lot of people are hands-on learners, and they just want to do it once. And what we found to teach this properly is you'll actually run through the ammunition making process with your own ammo. Ours supplied to you, so it's going to be class ammunition that we're making. You cannot leave with it. It's not for your rifle. It is a class rifle we'll be loading for as well. But you're going to go through the entire process twice. And I find that the second time is where it really matters. Like you'll be like, oh, I see how this works now. And then you can go back, get the manuals out, follow the book line by line, and make really safe and good quality ammunition. Those registrations will go out with our newsletter on Friday, and those classes should be open for registration now online, with dates going up on the website, probably on Friday as well. So there'll only be 18 people total, 6 in a class and 3 classes. So if you'd like to join us, we'd love to have you. And that class will be held here at our facility in Johnstown, Pennsylvania. So I want to thank everybody for taking the time to join us. If you enjoyed the podcast, you would like to share it, we really appreciate it. It helps a lot with our ratings and standings. And we also like to thank everybody for just tuning in. If you'd like to leave a comment down below, we appreciate that. That helps us a lot with our standings as well. So thank you for joining us. We really appreciate it. My name is Jamie Dodson. I am your host, and you're listening to Wolf Precision's Long Range Shooting and Custom Rifle Building Podcast.